Understanding Longevity Part 2. This is Peter Pure, and in this second video we're going to have a look at how we can live a lot longer in a much more youthful state. So I'm going to start introducing some concepts to you, and here's an idea that we've been told that we are living longer. So let's have a look at this. This is called a life curve. So if we have a population here, 100% of the population are born, and there 0% are left. And so as an expression of numbers, when we track this forward through over time, so let's say here we've got age 100 down there, and maybe we've got age 20 here, age 40 here, age 60 here, age 80 here. And so when we track over time, then here's pretty much how things have been looking. Back 50,000 years before Christ, we would have a life expectancy curve which would very much look like about this. It would go like that. That's based upon the fossil record. As we get into 15,000 years ago before Christ, this is in Northern Europe, we would have a slight improvement, and it would go like that. Coming up to the Roman era of 1100 BC, again an improvement, and it would go like that. And then coming up to more modern times, contemporary times, we'd have a curve that would look like, you know, we'd solve the birth-death rate, and we'd have a curve that looks a bit like that. Now, so when we hear that we're living longer, what that means is that when we have an expression of who are the people at 50%, so around about here you've got about 50% of the people still living. They're living till about 77 right now in England. Back in the past, 50% in the Roman era, you might be living till about 55 or so. Back in Stone Age, Bronze Age, you know, maybe it's going to be around about 40. So this is what's called the average life expectancy. When we track 100 people, when we track how long they live for, it's called the average life expectancy. So people are now living longer on average. However, that's not necessarily going to help you or I. The problem is that no matter what time period, you've always had one person or two people live out to the maximum human lifespan of around about 105. That happened 50,000 years ago, and it's happening today. To give you an idea, Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, he lived till around about 100, and that was in 460 AD. So to get more people living longer, that's a fairly easy thing to do, and this is what's known as squaring off the curve. So here we see a curve, zoom, a lot of people die, and that's one person lives to 100. Now, less people die, more people end up around about 80 or so, and then there's a few people that live to 100. And so this is what's known as squaring off the curve. So we've had a perfect square. We would have 100% of the population that are born living to 100. And this is relatively easy to do. We do want to participate in that, but there are some very simple principles, and we'll be talking about this on the Youngevity weekend. But there is just a matter of incorporating exercise with your daily lifestyle. It's about having a positive outlook in life, and having a strong sense of purpose and direction, knowing what you're doing. It's about not eating too much, avoiding smoking, avoiding meat consumption, and it's also having a sense of family, community, and friendship bonding. So we're primarily having a plant-based diet. So primarily plant-based diet, we're going to start looking at the longest lived cultures in the world right now. So this is really increasing your average life expectancy by population. Those things are rather easy to do and rather easy to implement. What I'm going to be talking about on the Youngevity weekend is not just those factors, which have been very well studied, but what is going to cause us to, let's get a pen here, what's going to cause us to not just get to 105, but to get to 120. And so this figure here, this is known as the maximum. It's the maximum lifespan expectancy as opposed to the average or the median lifespan expectancy. So how do we improve on the maximum lifespan expectancy? Well, there we've got to start looking at what kind of things we can do and what kind of things we can consume that's going to increase our maximum lifespan expectancy. Let me give you one thing which is very, very exciting, and that is reishi mushrooms. Now, reishi mushrooms, when we give them into other animals and give them to rodents, well, we can extend the maximum lifespan of a rodent to about 120 in human terms. So we can have an extra 16 years in human terms if the data on rodents with the reishi mushrooms pan out to human beings. And this is truly extraordinary because it means that we can go beyond that. And another conception that people have, or a misconception that they have about living a long time is, oh, if you live a long time, you're gonna, you're gonna be a decrepit old git by the time you get to 100. What about by the time you get to 120? You're gonna be even more of a decrepit old git. Well, I'll give you an example of my own personal experience. So I'm 40 years of age right now, but my heart has been measured, medically speaking, as having the same health characteristics of that of a young person, and so my heart age is more like around about 14. So even though I'm 40, my heart age is around about 14. So it's not like I've got a 40-year-old heart and in 10 years from now I'm going to have a 50-year-old heart. Actually, that's not the case. I aim to keep my 14-year-old heart for the next 10 years. Maybe I'll have a 13-year-old heart, or maybe I'll have a 15-year-old heart in 10 years from now. So the reality is that there is multiple aspects that we can do to rejuvenate it in terms of aging and turn back the clocks of time. And I'm a living, breathing example of some of that. And what we're going to be seeing as of now is that we have regenerative medicine where we're able to repair our body and turn back the clocks of time in multiple aspects of our health and physical and biological functioning. And so this is really exciting. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you more so on the Youngevity weekend. The summary of this is that the average lifespan expectancy, we can do this by just improving our health. We always want to do that by population, but on an individual basis, if we've already been looking after health, then it's like, then the two questions begin, and that is, how do we improve upon our maximum lifespan expectancy and go beyond the healthy lifespan and go to a longer lifespan, and how do we rejuvenate and regenerate and become younger from the perspective of living, and so we get younger as we get older, and with that comes from my previous video where we looked at regenerative medicine, which we'll touch again on the next video in this series. I'll see you at the Youngevity weekend.